Hey guys, it's Madison and welcome to this media challenge video. Today is actually day 2 of the challenge. I have logged the first day of the challenge separately and posted that last week, so I kind of break down what the challenge entails, what I'm doing there, but in case you have not seen that yet, I will explain it briefly again. So this project was organized / hosted by Joe Renee Languages, and it's basically a deep dive into some kind of media. I'm kind of doing projects related to that media. For me, I'm going to kind of focus on Korean news, kind of going word by word through news broadcasts and making sure I understand every single piece of vocabulary there because I want to kind of shore up my formal vocabulary. And then because I tend to find news boring, I'm actually going to kind of mix it up and also do some variety shows hopefully as well. And same thing, kind of breaking through every single vocabulary word, making sure I understand every single word coming out of the hosts' mouths. And then even though I'm focusing mostly on Korean media for this challenge, I'm also going to hopefully do some of my other 2 languages every single day as well. For Mandarin, the media I'm focusing on is just doing 2 Chinese every day. I've kind of been neglecting it for the past 6 weeks, and so I really want to get less rusty on my reading skills there. And then for Japanese, I want to continue to use Hatori Reader every single day. I've been using the app every single day for a while now, so it should be fairly easy to continue that pattern, hopefully, but we'll see. And then I would love to also do some Japanese media every single day as well, but we'll see if I have time for that. But that's my overall goal. And one more thing before I get started actually studying in this vlog is I'm actually starting this challenge. Today's Friday, the second day, so I started on Thursday. And the reason for that is because my brain is a weird, mysterious place. And so when I first saw Joe Renee post about this challenge, I looked at the dates and I was like, oh sweet, that is my vacation week. The week off I have in between semesters. It's perfect for a challenge, awesome. And then a few days later, I saw something else about it and I was like, oh wait, that's not my vacation week. That is the first week of summer semester. It's unfortunately right after my vacation, which is a little more of a bummer. Not as convenient, but I'm still gonna give it a shot. And so I'm not sure what I saw that made me think that it was the week after vacation, but I had firmly planted in my head the idea that this week of the challenge was happening the first week of summer semester, which is next week. And then yesterday I was on YouTube and I happened to see that Joe Renee Languages had her first live stream for this challenge, and I was like, oh wait a second, it's this week. I totally missed the first 3 days of the challenge. And so yesterday I hastily started a few days behind, and I'm just going to extend my 7-day week challenge beyond what most of the other people are doing and do a full 7 days, just starting a few days late. So I'm a little bit late to the game, but I'm here to attempt this challenge nonetheless. And so that is why today is Friday and it's only day 2. But yeah, today I'm getting a bit of a late start as I did yesterday as well. It's already a little past 6. And so I'm probably not gonna be able to accomplish a ton today, unfortunately. Today I had a graduation to attend. It was at 11 o'clock, but I ended up being on campus way longer than I thought I would be because afterwards there was a lunch, and then I ended up talking to my colleagues in the English department for a while, and then we ended up going back to our office and people brought their dogs and we were just hanging out with dogs and chatting, and I ended up being there until like 4 p.m. And so it took me a while to get back home, eat some food, and kind of tidy my apartment before I attempted to dive into today's activities. So that is why I'm starting super late. And one more side story before I totally jump into this challenge about graduation today. So I'm a faculty member, and so we have kind of a procession during the graduation ceremony. And as we were proceeding out of the auditorium, I heard several students say to the faculty member in front of me, who I didn't know, ni hao, ni hao, ni hao. And so I was like, wait a minute, this person in front of me walking in the procession is apparently the Chinese professor, which I knew there was a Chinese professor, but I hadn't ever met her in person. And so I was in a weird moment struck by social bravery, and so I decided to talk to her in Chinese. And so in Mandarin I said, oh, are you the Chinese teacher? And she was like shocked that someone was like just speaking randomly in Mandarin beyond just a student saying ni hao to her as they passed. And so she turned around as we were walking and she was like, oh, like, oh, you know Chinese? In Chinese. And I was like, oh yeah, I studied in college a little bit in Chinese. And we had this little brief, like 4 or 5 sentence interaction in Chinese, which I kind of struggled with because my speaking in Chinese is not strong at all. After college, basically, which was when I graduated in 2017, so a while ago, 6 years ago. After that, I have not spoken in Chinese to basically anybody because I haven't had the need to, because I just watch Chinese TV. I don't have any like Chinese friends or anything that I could practice speaking with, and so I never do any output in Chinese. And so I can understand totally fine. So she was asking questions and I was like, bleh. Like for example, she asked when I came to this university to start teaching, and I tried to say last year and I said 下年, which is not how you say last year. And she was like, 去年, and I was like, yeah, 去年, 对对对. And so I was like, oh, mortified. But yeah, for some reason I was socially outgoing today at the graduation ceremony and felt inspired to speak to somebody that I didn't know in a language that I'm not great at speaking in, and it went fine. She was very friendly, and she didn't do that thing where you hear someone is not great at speaking and you switch to English immediately. She kept asking me questions in Chinese, which I guess is the strength of being a Chinese teacher. You're more inclined to ask simple questions and keep going, but I was very happy with myself and pleased that I had this little interaction. And now if I see her around again, maybe I can have more simple, less embarrassing interactions with her, where I don't mess up the word for last year, which is such a simple word. I know that word just in the moment. What came out of my mouth was 夏天, which is, or not 夏天, 下年, which is incorrect. So, but anyway, it's enough random rambling now. I'm gonna go ahead and jump into this week's challenge, day 2 of the challenge. And so I'm gonna start again with news. Hopefully the topic this time is a little bit easier. I'm just gonna pick a random short 자막 news or subtitled news clip again, and I'm gonna skip the dictation this time because that was not helpful for me last time. It was such an unfamiliar topic. It was just a struggle more than a learning experience, and so I'm gonna go ahead and break down the news, go through the transcript, look up expressions, that kind of stuff, and kind of just do what I feel inspired to do, and hopefully it won't take quite as long to get through the clip as it did yesterday, but we shall see how it goes.
마트에서 방울토마토 한 팩을 훔쳤다가 절도 혐의로 입건됐습니다.
All right, so check-in time. I did the news story, looked up all the unfamiliar or slightly familiar words, and it only took me 30 minutes this time because number one, it was an easier topic to learn some things, but it definitely wasn't as brain intensive as yesterday. Plus I skipped the dictation, so it was much faster. And I think doing a 1-minute clip in 30 minutes is much more reasonable than doing it in an hour and 20 minutes like it took yesterday. So I think that's a much better way to do the news, at least for now. I might do some more activities related to those 2 news stories from today and yesterday tomorrow, like maybe do some shadowing practice and maybe do some like active vocab flashcards and recall kind of stuff, but today I'm not feeling like doing that, so I'm not going to do it. I did do a bit of Saturday Reader and do Chinese after I did that news story, and then I had some dinner and now I'm back. It's a little bit after 10, so it's a little bit late, but I am going to do a little bit more because I am a night owl and so I still have energy. So I think I'm going to try and do a variety show. I think I'm going to do a 연애 참견, which is that relationship advice show. They're generally around an hour to an hour and 5 minutes long, so I'm definitely not going to do the whole thing tonight because that would take me a long time. If a 1-minute clip takes me half an hour, obviously a longer show would take much longer. And so I'm just going to try and do the beginning little baby section. Usually there's like a 5 to 10 minute beginning opening thingy. This is much more colloquial, much more the language that I'm generally used to, so it should be quicker to go through. Hopefully it'll have a transcript, or like subtitles I mean, so that I can like actually see the exact words that they're using. If not, they do put a lot of the words they say on the screen anyways, because Korean variety shows always do that. They put a ton of text on the screen, so hopefully between that and my listening, I can put together all the things that they're saying and type out a transcript for myself to study from. But yeah, that's the plan for the rest of tonight, and I will check in with you guys probably tomorrow. All right, so it's now Saturday, and that means it's day 3 for me for this challenge because I started late. And yesterday went decently well. I didn't accomplish everything I was hoping to, but I am happy with what I did get accomplished. I went through and reread the entire story of Do Chinese that I had been reading but took a break from for 6 weeks, so I kind of lost the plot a little bit, so I just quickly went through. I didn't like go through like an intensive reading, but I did just turn on the audio at 1.5 speed because they do like a really slow dramatic reading of these stories, and so 1.5 speed is more like typical actual normal talking speed, and I just read along with the audio to catch up on what had been going on in that story. And that took over 45 minutes, so I was very happy with that. Didn't end up watching any Japanese media yesterday, but I don't really care that much about that. That was kind of a very minor goal. Did do my Japanese Hattori reader, of course. And aside from the half an hour of news that I did in the morning yesterday, I also ended up doing the Love Naggers, I think is what it's called in English, the relationship advice show. The English name is so dumb, but yeah, that took forever. It took an hour and 20 minutes just to transcribe the first, I think it was the first 5 minutes of the show. Let me see. Yeah, the first 5 minutes almost exactly. There were several parts where I wasn't exactly sure what was being said because, you know, it's like a live conversation between 5 people. So sometimes there's people talking over each other. Sometimes they are like laughing while they're talking. So it's really hard to like hear the actual words they're saying. For the most part, I was able to get like 95 or 99, maybe even % of what they were saying written down, especially since a lot of the words are written on the screen, but not every single word gets put on the screen, and the auto-generated Korean subtitles were also having difficulty hearing what I was having difficulty hearing, and so they were no help whatsoever. It was just blank for the parts that I was trying to understand. And so there are a couple places in my little transcript, which is pretty long. It's like 4 pages. And that hour and 20 minutes was just me typing it out and trying to pick out those mystery words. And so it took quite a while just to go through and try to write things down. I haven't even done any vocab or anything like that from it. And so today I do plan on going through quickly and looking up the unfamiliar words. I do tend to understand like 95% of the things that are said in this show. And even when I don't understand exactly what's being said, I get the gist of what's being said usually, and so I have no problem understanding it. But I do, again, part of the exercise of this challenge is for me to kind of do a deep dive and make sure I'm understanding actually everything that's happening, at least for the parts I was able to make out and transcribe. So I'm gonna go through that real quick and write down that vocab. And then I also already did a news segment for today. It was a 2-minute news segment, so a little bit longer than the ones I've been doing the previous 2 days, which were only 1 minute long. But it was fairly easy to understand. It was about a guy who was making a ruckus on a bus while drunk. And so it was pretty easy to go through. I only had like 15 words, I think, that I didn't know in that 2-minute segment. And I went ahead and made Quizlets for all 3 of the news segments that I've watched so far. After I look up the words in the variety show part, I'm gonna go ahead and make a Quizlet for that as well, and probably just do a big vocab study session. I might also go back and do some additional activities for the news stuff. Like I might pick probably yesterday's because it was a fairly understandable topic. I might go ahead and do some shadowing practice for that, just to kind of add another fun activity to the mix there. And then later, I'm not sure, I'm thinking about maybe trying to summarize the main idea of one of the news segments or multiple of the news segments, but we'll see if I end up doing that. I'll decide kind of after I power through some vocab whether or not I want to do summarizing or move on to a different media activity.
홀로 6살짜리 태우는 40대 여성이 마트에서 방울토마토를 훔쳤다가 금방 조치된 것으로 전해졌습니다. 우리 남은 방울토마토를 들고 경찰에 온 A씨는 6살짜리 빠로 구성된 격리범죄 심사위원회를 열고 A 시발적이었던 것으로 보인다고 밝혔습니다. 다만 한부모 가정인 점들.
Alright, today is Saturday again, so an entire week has passed since I last filmed, but never fear, even though I didn't film, I was still working on this challenge, so I will go through a quick update of what I've done since the last time I filmed a week ago. So starting on Saturday, I showed you guys I did some shadowing, which was hard but really beneficial, I feel like. A news announcer is very crisp and quick in the way they speak, and so trying to emulate that I feel like is a really good activity that I want to continue into the future. I also did some of that vocab review, as you saw. Didn't end up doing any written summaries the entire challenge, so that's a little bit of a shame, but it's fine. I still accomplished my main goal of going through the deep dive of vocabulary and really focusing on building my vocabulary throughout the week, especially for news. That evening, I actually joined Joverne's second live stream for this challenge and studied for about an hour and a half during that time. I did another bout of trying to transcribe the variety show, 연애의 장면, again. I thought I found a hack where I could go on Netflix instead of YouTube because Netflix usually has native language subtitles, and so I thought I could just export those directly using Language Reactor. However, because variety shows have so much text built in on the screen, Language Reactor only had the text that was not put on the screen, so it was still missing half the text, so I still grumbled and toiled my way through trying to fit in all that extra text that Language Reactor did not pick up, and so it still was a really time-intensive project that I had to go through. And by the end, I went back to YouTube using those Language Reactor exported subtitles and started just screenshotting the screen and throwing those in there as a kind of hack. That way I still had the text of what was being said, but I didn't have to like actually type it all out myself. But by the end of that hour and a half of studying, I was just so brain dead that I didn't even go through and look up any vocab. I was like, oh my god, I'm sick of this. I've been working on this for an hour and a half and I only have 13 minutes of content, even though half of it was already written down for me. This is way too time intensive, and I actually kind of gave up on variety shows from that point forward and only did news from then on. Originally, I was thinking that news would be too boring to focus on this week because I don't like news usually, but I realized that I had this misconception of news as just being politics and finance. And I think it's because usually when I would turn on the longer form, like daily news broadcasts that I used to watch from like JTBC and other daily news programs on YouTube, it would usually start with this really long segment on politics. And for me, I would just never care about any of these people I didn't know, and whatever scandal or criticism that one person was receiving lately, I just didn't care. And so it was really boring at the beginning, and I think when the more interesting stories would happen later, I was just already brain dead and didn't care. And so when I did these like little 1 or 2 minute news segments this week where I could go through and choose what topic I chose, I realized that like once I got into like the daily kind of bizarre happening of the day, that kind of stuff, it was a lot more interesting to look at that, you know, the weird guy who was holding a weapon and threatening the police, or this drunk guy harassing a bus driver, or this elementary school kid who got like stabbed by their fellow student and they can't figure out who it is at this elementary school who stabbed this other student. So once I got into kind of more of those stories and totally avoided more nuclear power plants like the first day or politics or finance for the most part, it was a lot more fun and interesting, and I found myself actually wanting to go back and do that more, and I didn't want to do the variety shows anymore, so I really focused in mostly on news after that point. Once the summer semester started with my teaching, I had a lot less time, and so I didn't end up doing a lot of other activities besides just going through and transcribing and going through the vocab every day. But yesterday, Friday, was my weekend beginning. We only have classes Monday through Thursday in the summer, and so I actually was able to do a few more activities. Like for example, yesterday I went on ChatGPT, and I haven't really done this before, but I went ahead and used it for all the kind of question marks I had found throughout the entire challenge week of like, okay, these two words both mean escape. How are they different? And ChatGPT could tell me. And okay, both these words were used for a police baton. How are they different? And ChatGPT actually got that one wrong. It was like, this one's a police baton and this one's like used in martial arts and not used to refer to police batons. I was like, well, in the story, it was definitely a police officer using it. It was mostly a helpful experience, aside from those moments where it was like, okay, I can see that you're a little bit off here, but I can figure it out via context. And so I can kind of glean the useful bits and disregard the not so useful or not so accurate bits. And then I also didn't really make any more Quizlets since last Saturday. And so this morning, actually, I sat down for an hour and pounded out a bunch of Quizlets based on all the notes I had made on vocabulary. So hopefully this upcoming week, during my walk to work or on lunch breaks, I can go through and review the vocab so I'm not just looking it up once and deleting it immediately after, but actually can stick in my brain a little bit better. So that's the plan. And then as far as Mandarin and Japanese go, Mandarin I managed to study with Chinese every single day, and I actually kind of hit my next milestone. I finished part 2 of the Three Kingdoms story, which is like a fictional story based on true events and true people. And so I'm starting, or have started, the 3rd part of that story. And thankfully, even though day 1, I was very, very, very rusty on my reading in Mandarin, I have kind of cleared away that dust and rust, and I'm feeling a lot better about reading in Mandarin now. As far as Japanese, I definitely continued to do Japanese every single day with Satori Reader, and I didn't do media every single day. I didn't manage to watch Japanese media every single day, but I watched it a few days, and I actually managed to finish season 4 of Agretsuko, that anime I've been watching on and off for the past year-ish. Yeah, I definitely didn't study a ton of Mandarin and Japanese, but my goal was to focus more on Korean anyway, so I guess I achieved that goal for sure. And if you look at the total breakdown of time, I managed to do 26 hours and 2 minutes over the last 10 days. That's right, 10 days. I managed to kind of extend the challenge. At day 7, I was kind of wishing I had done more or could do more. And I was like, wait, I can't. This challenge is in my hands. I can do what I want. I'm gonna extend the challenge. And so I cut off the challenge officially this morning after I did the Quizlets. And so that's how I got to 26 hours over 10 days. So that's what, 2.6 hours average per day. And that includes all the like show watching and stuff. If you take away all of that and just consider the active studying time, it's 18 hours and 52 minutes. So still a decently significant amount of time considering I was working for around half of that time. So that's pretty good. And you can see that Korean is definitely the dominant part of that week, especially once you only consider active time. I'm very happy with those numbers, especially considering I had to start the summer semester in the middle of that. And so if you look at the day by day, you can definitely see where my time went down on Sunday as I had to prepare a lot for the semester and then throughout that week. And then yesterday was the beginning of my weekend on Friday. And so I definitely, you can see I enjoyed that Friday. And yeah, if you only consider active time, that jump from having free time to not having free time with the beginning of the semester is a lot more clear there as well. And you can also see that I did every single language active study every day, except for today, which I haven't done Mandarin and Japanese yet, but I plan to. So yeah, that is my week overall, or I should say my 10-day challenge overall. I would say the thing I'm most satisfied with this week was the fact that I actually ended up enjoying the news a lot more than I expected. And I feel like I've kind of broken my misconception of the news. And I feel like because I've realized that news is not just politics and finance, I'm gonna be actually much more motivated to do news a lot more often. Of course, I say that now. We'll see if I actually end up implementing it more in my study routine more often. But here's hoping now that I don't have that politics stigma towards it. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy my little deep dive into Korean media, especially news. And if you're not already following Jo Renee Languages, I recommend that you do so because I believe she is planning on continuing to do more language challenges into the future. And so you can join me and her as we continue to do challenges from time to time. But yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it here for this video and I will see you guys again in the next one. And until then, annyeong.